Half an hour before I receive my degree certificate, Lionel Simmons, my boyfriend as well as the class president, tells me that my graduation will be getting delayed because I need to retake my exam on a major course. Meanwhile, Vivian Crosby, the campus belle who often ranks last in exams, is eligible to receive certifications on her courses. Lionel quickly shields Vivian from me while looking very unapologetic. In this course, every class requires a certain quota when it comes to the retakes. Since Vivian has bad grades, there's no way she's passing the retake. That's why I submitted your name instead. Unlike you, Vivian doesn't have excellent grades and a boyfriend who actually gives a damn about you. Even if your graduation gets delayed, it won't affect our future plans at all. Amelia, you should make some sacrifices for your fellow classmates' sake. After I strongly object against that decision, my classmates mock me for being petty and uncaring toward Vivian. Fine. Since they obviously lack empathy for me, I don't hesitate to call my uncle, who's a member of the university board as well as one of the invigilators of the final exams. I got into the top 3 ranks of the final exams, and yet I can't graduate on time because I have to retake my final exam instead. Does this mean the remaining hundreds of students bribed you to not fail their exams instead? I want everyone's graduations to get delayed alongside mine in half an hour, no matter what. I never thought that with my grades, I'd ever have to take a makeup exam. So, back when a Fortune 100 company asked when I could start, I told them the next day. And the whole time, Lionel Simmons knew that. I stared at him coldly. You knew I was supposed to report to work tomorrow with my degree certificate in hand, and you pull something like this? Lionel barely looked at me. It's not like you can't get it anymore. Stop making such a big deal out of it. It's just a makeup exam. You'll pass easily. I believe in you. I was speechless at how casually he said it. I rebutted, you changed my grades without my permission. Is this really about a makeup exam? I'm starting work tomorrow. How am I supposed to explain not having my degree certificate? He sighed, somewhat irritated. I'm your boyfriend. Can't I make a decision about something this minor? If you're really that capable, you won't need a degree certificate anyway. Who knows if you exaggerated your qualifications to them in the first place? As soon as he finished speaking, Vivian Crosby tugged on my sleeve. Amelia, we're still students. You shouldn't be so obsessed with fame and fortune. I've looked at your resume. Those innovation competitions and entrepreneurship awards you listed, the official websites don't even list your name. They'll definitely expose you. Lionel was only trying to save you from embarrassing yourself. Instead of appreciating his good intentions, you're blaming him. I was stunned for a moment. Every one of those awards had been earned fair and square. I had used my former name because I preferred to keep a low profile. And the people who handed out those awards were longtime business partners and family friends. They all knew exactly who I was. I shook her hand off in disgust. Stop acting innocent when you're benefiting from this. Was this really about saving me from embarrassment, or about making sure you graduate smoothly? Vivian's slender hand stiffened midair. Her eyes reddened as she looked at me pitifully. That's not it. You've misunderstood. Before she could finish, Lionel stepped in protectively in front of her. Enough. Amelia Wood, can you stop with this ridiculous jealousy? I'm not just your boyfriend. I'm everyone's friend. I have a responsibility to help any classmate who needs it. Do you know what'll happen if Vivian doesn't get her degree? Her parents will marry her off to some old bachelor. What's wrong with you sacrificing a little for someone else's future? Since when did you become so selfish? I met Vivian's guilty eyes. I was a student council representative. When Vivian transferred into our program, I had already looked into her family background. They might not be wealthy, but she was an only child, and her parents treated her very well. I had mentioned all this to Lionel before. But in the end, he still chose not to believe me. Instead, every time Vivian played the victim, he accused me of becoming cold-hearted out of jealousy because he paid too much attention to her. Several of our classmates gasped when they heard Vivian's story, immediately offering help. Don't worry. We're not heartless like certain people. Vivian looked up, a trace of provocation hidden in her smile. Thank you, everyone. But please don't say that. This is my own problem after all. I can't force anyone to help me. The classroom quickly filled with sarcastic comments about how I was nowhere as generous or resilient as Vivian, and how I lacked Lionel's compassion and sense of responsibility. I couldn't be bothered arguing with this group of idiots. Right now, the only thing that mattered was my job. I had promised my mother that I would start from the bottom, gain experience, and eventually take over the family company my late father had left behind. Thinking of that, I immediately called the company to explain the situation with my degree certificate. But unexpectedly, I was scolded. This morning, someone told me that your grades were terrible, that you failed classes, that your resume was fake, and that those awards weren't even yours. I didn't believe it at first. But now, I get it. You've been lying to me from the start. If you can't even get your degree certificate, what abilities could you possibly have? Our company will never hire someone who falsifies their qualifications. Before I could explain, he angrily hung up. A nameless rage burned in my chest as I looked up at Lionel. At that moment, Vivian's phone rang. I saw the familiar company name and number on her screen, and a bad feeling crept over me. That company had only recruited one person from our university. And during the interviews, I had been the only applicant from our school. Very quickly, the exact same voice came through the phone. Our company appreciates people who fight hard for opportunities. So, after careful consideration, we've decided to hire you. When would you be available to start? Vivian looked around excitedly. This afternoon. As soon as I get my degree certificate, I can report in. Great. See you this afternoon. After hanging up, Vivian gazed at Lionel affectionately. Lionel, thank you for lending me Amelia's resume and helping me fight for this opportunity. I'm truly grateful. She then turned to me with a guilty expression and said, I'm really sorry. You have to take the blame and sit for the makeup exam because of my degree certificate, and now I even took your job opportunity. I hope you won't hold it against me. Once you pass the makeup exam, I'll recommend you to the company and see if they can let you start as an intern. Lionel glanced at me dismissively. Don't bother with her. She can do whatever she wants. Besides, being able to contribute something to you is her privilege. You earned this yourself by being amazing. I was so furious that I wanted to scream. Those were things I had worked my butt off for. I slapped Lionel across the face. What right do you have to decide for me? You stole my work to make her look good, and you have the nerve to speak. So much for worrying about getting exposed. Lionel was stunned for a moment, suppressing the anger in his gaze. He barked, your achievements were all fake. If you can use them, why can't she? Can you stop being so petty? All you ever think about is tearing her down. I glared at him. Who said they were fake? Enough. Don't argue with me. Do you think I wouldn't know the truth? I'm your boyfriend. In the future, you'll be marrying into my family. You should start listening to me sooner rather than later. What does a woman need a good career for? All you need to worry about is staying at home and taking care of your husband and kids. I'll support you in the future. Isn't that easier than struggling on your own? I've already planned everything out for you. What more do you want? Before I could speak, others immediately started flattering him. Amelia, you should appreciate what you have. Lionel is such a catch. If you keep acting this immature, he could dump you anytime. It's such a shame. If Vivian had transferred here earlier, someone as amazing as Lionel never would have dated you in the first place. I looked at Lionel, basking in everyone's praise, and laughed in disbelief. Don't flatter yourself. I was only dating you for fun. As for marriage, I already have someone else in mind. Lionel's smile froze as he stared at me in disbelief. What do you mean? Yes, we had agreed to get engaged after graduation. But ever since Vivian slowly started intruding into our lives, everything had changed. If she said she was scared to be alone, Lionel would abandon me in the middle of the street on our anniversary just to comfort her. Once, I called him crying after being harassed by a drunk man, and all he gave me was an impatient, "Can you stop copying other people for attention?" And during a rainstorm, because he worried Vivian would get soaked on her way home from her part-time job, he took the only umbrella I had and left me stranded in the pouring rain, unable to get a cab no matter how hard I tried. I ended up with a high fever so bad that I nearly blacked out. When he came home, not only did he show zero concern for me, but he actually dragged me out of bed to make ginger tea for Vivian who'd only gotten drizzled on slightly. And he still accused me of being dramatic and spoiled. There had been too many moments like that. I should have realized sooner that there was no place for me in his heart anymore. I looked at him calmly. I mean exactly what I said. You're not worthy of my love. The room instantly fell silent. No one dared to speak. Suddenly, Vivian fell to her knees, looking pitiful. This is all my fault. I was the one who begged Lionel for help. He was only trying to be kind. Please don't break up with him, okay? He really loves you. He's already planned out your entire future for you. Please. Lionel snapped to his senses and hurried to help her up. He said to me, I'm really disappointed in you. The moment he said that, criticism exploded all around me. It's just a delayed graduation. Your grades are so good. It's not like you won't pass the makeup exam. Do you really need to make such a big scene over this? Yeah. If you're so capable, what's the big deal about giving up one job opportunity? Stop making a mountain out of a molehill. She's about to get sold off to some old man, and all you care about is graduating. How can you be so selfish? You deserve to be shipped off to the mountains. Disgusting. Everyone chimed in one after another, throwing vicious jabs at me. I looked at their righteous expressions and sneered coldly. You all love to talk big without understanding the facts, huh? You love standing up for justice on behalf of others? Fine. Then let's all delay graduation together. As I spoke, I immediately called my uncle. I want a satisfactory explanation for my delayed graduation. You have 30 minutes. My uncle clearly had no idea what had happened. He paused for a second before answering seriously. After hanging up, I didn't want to look at their smug faces for another second. I turned to leave, but Lionel blocked my way. The degree certificate arrangements have already been finalized. Even if you go looking for someone, it won't change anything. Stop ruining everyone's mood and stay for dinner. I looked at him with amusement. You never know. Several students with poor grades immediately looked uneasy. What does that mean? Vivian looked at them pitifully. She's just angry and trying to scare everyone on purpose. She wants you all to panic and push the blame onto me. Lionel snorted. Don't worry. No matter what she says, none of us will throw you under the bus. Besides, I've dated her for years. I've never heard of her having any relatives on the school board. She's obviously lying. Hearing that, everyone visibly relaxed, and the hostility in their eyes toward me only deepened. Don't worry, Vivian. We won't let you suffer either. Someone like Amelia, always pretending and scheming, will definitely become a menace once she enters society. I just smiled silently as they spoke with such confidence. Lionel pulled me back into my seat and told everyone to relax and have fun. Then, he handed them the menu and told them to order whatever they wanted. I had planned to leave. But hearing them call me petty and emotionally unintelligent changed my mind. I wanted to see the looks on their faces later when they had neither money nor degree certificates. I watched as Lionel grew more and more generous in response to everyone's praise. With a wave of his hand, he ordered seafood platters, oysters, and other premium dishes for everyone without hesitation. He certainly didn't hold back. Back before graduation, Vivian's social media had been filled with photos of fancy meals, mostly from high-end restaurants. Around that time, Lionel started lamenting that he had never treated everyone to a proper meal. He also mentioned that money was tight due to his internship and job hunting. Otherwise, he would have loved to treat everyone to a meal as thanks for all their support over the years. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I just thought he was good at managing relationships, so I agreed to pay for it on his behalf. He excitedly announced to the whole class that he was treating everyone, and even specifically asked Vivian what she wanted to eat. That was how they ended up choosing this restaurant. Lionel glanced at me guiltily before quickly changing the subject. Soon, the atmosphere became lively again. He poured a glass of wine and placed it in front of me. You made such a huge fuss over nothing today and made everyone upset. I'll give you a chance here. Say tonight's dinner is your treat as an apology to everyone. And later, apologize to Vivian too. Everyone will let this go for my sake. I've already arranged everything perfectly for you, so stop being so stubborn. Sometimes, it's better to take the loss. Don't ruin everyone's graduation dinner. I looked at his shameless expression and laughed softly. You don't even know if you're graduating or not. Aren't you getting ahead of yourself by celebrating? The smug look on Vivian's face froze instantly. A second later, she looked too wrong to endure it any longer. You've gone too far. You can say whatever you want about me. But are you really going to drag everyone down with you just because you can't get your degree certificate? I looked at her with disdain, then splashed my wine straight across her carefully made-up face. Let me correct you. It's not because of me. Everyone is losing their degree certificates because you obtained yours through improper means. Watching the makeup Vivian had spent so much time on get ruined, Lionel completely lost it and slapped me across the face. Can you behave and stop embarrassing me? The school has already issued the degree certificates. Who do you think you are? You think you can change the school's decision? My cheek burned with pain. I was stunned. You actually hit me? A trace of panic flashed across his face. If you do something wrong, shouldn't you be taught a lesson? Today, it's kind-hearted Vivian. Tomorrow, what if you offend someone else? Everyone immediately backed him up. I looked at him coldly. You're the first person who's ever dared to hit me in my entire life. At that moment, someone noticed that 28 minutes had already passed. They sneered. Pfft. Stop pretending to be some rich heiress. Maybe you should check the time. It's been almost half an hour. Where's your explanation? I told you she was bluffing. Amelia, hurry up and apologize to Vivian already. Then we can all pretend none of this happened, all right? Laughing, they brought over all the alcohol on the table. Vivian, what should she drink? And how would you like her to apologize to you? It's your call. Vivian looked at me, her eyebrows raised slightly. That's too much. With a loud crack, Lionel pried open the cap of a bottle of hard liquor. Vivian held an open bottle of red wine in her hands, her eyes wide and hesitant. Seeing that, Lionel directly mixed the two together. Damn. I didn't expect you to be this ruthless to your own girlfriend. Lionel held the mixed drink to my lips, sounding almost helpless. She's way too spoiled. She needs to be humbled properly. Otherwise, once she marries into my family, she'll turn the whole house upside down. He then looked at me. Be good. I shouldn't have hit you earlier. Just drink it and let this end here. I'll help you beg Vivian for forgiveness. I glanced at the message my uncle had just sent me and curled my lips into a smile. Then, I poured myself a glass of red wine and downed it in one gulp, as if to wash away my bad luck. There definitely will be begging for forgiveness tonight. But whether it'll be me begging you, or all of you begging me is another story. Oh, and one more thing. It's been exactly half an hour. As soon as I finished speaking, someone looked like they were about to hit me. But the next second, the class secretary's phone rang. The moment everyone saw the words Dean of Students flashing across the screen, their expressions changed completely. The private dining room, which only moments ago had been filled with boisterous laughter and smug jeers, fell into a suffocating silence. Leo, the class secretary, held his phone with a trembling hand. The screen brightly displayed the caller ID, Dean Vance, School of Business. Lionel's expression stiffened slightly, but he quickly recovered his composure. He patted Vivian's shoulder reassuringly before looking at Leo. Put it on. Speaker, Leo. Let's hear what the dean has to say. He's probably calling to remind us about the rehearsal order for the graduation ceremony. Yeah, definitely, one of the classmates chimed in, though his voice lacked its previous confidence. Lionel is the class president and a model student. The dean always contacts him first. Leo swallowed hard and swiped the screen, tapping the speaker icon. Leo? Is Lionel Simmons with you right now? Dean Vance's voice blasted through the speaker. It wasn't the warm, encouraging tone he usually reserved for student leaders. It was sharp, trembling with an undercurrent of severe panic and rage. Lionel immediately leaned closer to the phone, his voice smooth and respectful. I'm here, Dean Vance. We're currently having a small pre-graduation dinner with the class. Is there something you need me to coordinate for the ceremony in 20 minutes? Coordinate? Coordinate? Dean Vance roared, his voice cracking. Lionel Simmons, what on earth have you done? The Board of Trustees has just ordered an immediate freeze on all graduation proceedings for the entire senior class of the Business Administration Department. The announcement hit the room like a physical blow. The smiles on the classmates' faces vanished. Several people stood up so fast their chairs scraped harshly against the tiled floor. What? Suspended? Why would the whole department's graduation be frozen? Lionel's face drained of color. He clutched the edge of the dining table, his knuckles turning white. Dean Vance, I don't understand. The graduation certificates have already been printed and approved. Why would the board suddenly freeze them? Is there a system glitch? A glitch? I wish it were a glitch. Dean Vance hissed. 10 minutes ago, the president of the university and the chairman of the board received a formal complaint accompanied by forensic digital evidence. Someone used the administrator login credentials assigned to the student council president to access the internal academic database last night at 11:42 p.m. Lionel's breath hitched. His eyes involuntarily darted toward Vivian, who had gone completely pale, her lips trembling. The log shows, Dean Vance continued, each word dripping with venom, that the final grades of Amelia Wood were manually altered from an A+ to an F-. At the same time, the grades of Vivian Crosby were raised from an F to a passing D-. Furthermore, Amelia Wood's graduation eligibility status was marked as pending retake, while her honors and internship records were exported and reassigned to Vivian Crosby. The room went dead silent. Dozens of eyes slowly turned to look at Lionel and Vivian. Just minutes ago, Lionel had proudly proclaimed that Amelia was making a minor sacrifice and that the graduation arrangements were finalized. No one had expected him to have actually committed a serious academic crime to pull it off. Dean Vance, please listen to me, Lionel stammered, sweat pouring down his forehead. There must be some misunderstanding. I was simply trying to help a classmate who was facing extreme personal circumstances. Vivian's family was going to. I don't care about your excuses. Dean Vance interrupted ruthlessly. Do you have any idea who you crossed? The board member who initiated this audit is Charles Wood. He is not only one of our largest donors, but he is also the lead invigilator who personally graded Amelia Wood's paper. He knew damn well she scored the highest mark in the entire department. Hearing the name, Charles Wood, my classmates looked confused. They knew the name of the wealthy trustee, but none of them had ever connected it to me. Amelia. Lionel muttered, his voice shaking as he stared at me. Is Charles Wood really your uncle? I sat quietly, swirling the remaining red wine in my glass. I didn't answer him. I didn't need to. Lionel Simmons, Dean Vance's voice echoed like a death knell through the phone. The University Board of Directors, the Dean of Academic Affairs, and a team of legal counsel are heading to your location right now. You and Vivian Crosby are to remain exactly where you are. If you attempt to leave, the university will immediately contact the police to report unauthorized access to a state educational database and identity theft. The call disconnected with a sharp beep. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. The celebratory atmosphere of the private dining suite had completely disintegrated, replaced by a suffocating blanket of dread. Lionel, what did the dean mean? A student named Mark, who had been loudest in mocking me earlier, stepped forward, his face pale with anxiety. What does he mean the graduation is frozen? For the entire department? We didn't do anything. We studied for 4 years. My parents flew in from out of state to see me walk across the stage in 20 minutes. Exactly. Why do we have to suffer because of what you and Vivian did? Another girl cried out, her voice rising in panic. Lionel, you said everything was handled. You said Amelia was just being selfish. I didn't think. Lionel stammered, backing up until his knees hit his chair. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Amelia, your uncle is Charles Wood? Why didn't you ever tell me? Why should I have? I replied calmly, setting my wine glass down with a soft click. You always complained that I was too independent, that I didn't rely on you enough. I wanted to see if you loved me for who I was, or for what my family could do for you. It seems I got my answer. Amelia, please, Vivian sobbed, suddenly throwing herself toward me. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled it back, avoiding her touch as if she were carrying a plague. I didn't know Lionel did this. He told me the school had an extra quota. I didn't know he changed your grades. Please, tell your uncle to stop the investigation. If my parents find out, they'll what? Sell you to an old bachelor in the mountains? I let out a cold, mocking laugh. Vivian, your father is a mid-level manager at a local logistics company, and your mother runs a boutique flower shop. They adore you. They bought you a brand new sedan for your graduation. I saw the registration papers. When you applied for a parking permit. Who exactly is selling you to an old man? The classmates gasped. What? Her family is perfectly fine. She lied to us. She made us feel sorry for her so we'd help her bully Amelia. Vivian's face flushed a deep, ugly red. She looked around the room, but the sympathetic looks she usually received were gone, replaced by expressions of betrayal and disgust. Before anyone could say another word, the door to the private suite slid open. It wasn't the university board yet. Instead, it was the restaurant manager, accompanied by 2 burly security guards. The manager carried a leather-bound folder containing the bill. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, the manager said, his tone polite but firm. I apologize for the interruption, but our staff noticed some tension in here. Since it seems your party may be breaking up early, we require the bill to be settled now. He opened the folder and presented it to Lionel. The total for tonight, including the premium seafood platters, the imported oysters, and the 3 bottles of Chateau Lafite you ordered, comes to $8,450. Lionel's jaw dropped. $8,450? How is it that expensive? You ordered the reserve menu, sir, the manager explained, his smile fading into a professional squint. And as you requested, we opened our finest selection of wine. Who will be paying? Lionel's hand shook as he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He extracted a silver credit card and handed it to the manager. Here. Run this. The manager took the card and swiped it on a portable terminal. Beep. Beep. Transaction declined. Lionel's face went from pale to gray. That's impossible. Try it again. Declined again, sir, the manager said, his voice dropping a fraction of an octave, becoming colder. Do you have another card? I don't, Lionel whispered. He had maxed out his credit cards over the past few months trying to buy designer bags and expensive gifts for Vivian to maintain his image as a wealthy, successful student leader. He had fully expected me to pay for this dinner, just like I had paid for almost every major expense during our relationship. Lionel looked at me, his eyes pleading. Amelia, please. Pay the bill first. We can talk about everything else later. Don't embarrass me in front of our classmates. Embarrass you? I laughed, shaking my head in disbelief. Lionel, you slapped me across the face 10 minutes ago. You tried to force me to drink a mixture of hard liquor and red wine to apologize to the woman who stole my credentials. And now you want me to pay $8,450 to feed the people who just called me selfish and disgusting? I stood up, picking up my designer handbag. I wouldn't spend a single penny to save you from drowning, let alone to pay for your dinner. Amelia. Lionel yelled, trying to reach out and grab my arm. The restaurant security guards immediately stepped in front of him, blocking him with their heavy frames. Sir, please do not touch the lady. And we still need payment for the bill. Panic began to spread among the classmates. Wait, if Lionel can't pay, does that mean we have to split it? $8,000 split among 20 people is $400 each. I don't have that kind of money. I only had a salad and a glass of water. Why should I pay for Lionel's premium seafood and Vivian's expensive wine. The unity of the class, built on a foundation of hypocrisy and shared bullying, shattered instantly. Just as the arguments in the room reached a fever pitch, the heavy wooden doors of the private dining suite were pushed wide open. A group of people in formal business attire entered. At the front was a tall, middle-aged man with sharp graying temples and an aura of absolute authority. He wore a bespoke charcoal suit that screamed wealth and power. Behind him was Dean Vance, looking drenched in cold sweat, and the president of the university, Dr. Harrison, who looked equally terrified. Behind them were two campus security officers and a man in a sharp navy suit carrying a leather briefcase. "Uncle Charles," I said quietly, stepping aside. Charles Wood looked at me, his sharp eyes softening for a brief second as he took in the slight redness on my cheek where Lionel had slapped me. His expression instantly turned ice cold, his jaw clenching with a terrifying intensity. "Who did that to your face?" Charles asked, his voice low and vibrating with fury. Lionel, recognizing the sheer gravity of the man standing before him, tried to speak. "Mr. Wood. There was an altercation, but it was just a lover's quarrel." Smack. Before Lionel could finish his sentence, Charles's personal security guard, a towering man who had stepped up behind him, delivered a swift, backhanded slap that sent Lionel stumbling back into the dining table, knocking over glasses and plates. "You do not speak to Mr. Wood unless spoken to," the guard said coldly. "Mr. Wood, please." Dean Vance stammered, his hands shaking. "We can settle this. I assure you, the university will handle this with the utmost seriousness." "Handle it?" Charles turned his gaze to Dean Vance, and the dean visibly flinched. "Your student leader altered my niece's grades, stole her academic achievements, and handed them to a failing student so she could steal a job opportunity at a company my family owns a 40% stake in. And then, he physically assaulted her in public." Charles walked over to me, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. "Amelia, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Uncle," I said, my voice steady. "But my job offer with the Fortune 100 company was retracted because someone called them this morning, claiming my resume was fake and that I didn't graduate." "We will address that," Charles said. He turned to the man in the navy suit. "Marcus, explain the legal steps we are taking." The lawyer stepped forward, opening his briefcase. "My name is Marcus Vance, senior partner at Vance and Associates, representing the Wood Group and Miss Amelia Wood. We have already filed a formal request with the Cybercrimes Division of the local police department regarding unauthorized access to the university's grading system. The IP address used to alter the grades has been traced directly to Lionel Simmons' personal laptop, which was logged onto the campus Wi-Fi network at the time of the breach." Lionel, sitting on the floor rubbing his bruised jaw, looked up with wide, terrified eyes. No, it was just a mistake. I didn't mean to." Furthermore, Marcus continued, ignoring Lionel's whimpering, "we have filed a lawsuit against Miss Vivian Crosby for academic fraud, identity theft, and defamation of character. We have proof that she submitted Miss Wood's portfolio, including International Innovation Awards and entrepreneurship certificates, under her own name to the recruiting department of Apex Enterprises." Vivian let out a strangled cry and collapsed to her knees, sobbing hysterically. "No. Please. I didn't know. Lionel told me he would handle it. He said Amelia wouldn't mind because she was rich anyway. I didn't want to do this." "You didn't want to do this?" I walked over, looking down at her. "Vivian, when you took my resume and called the hiring manager to slander me, you seemed very eager. When you stood there and watched Lionel slap me, you didn't say a single word of protest. You even held the wine bottle, waiting for me to drink it to apologize to you. Don't act like a victim now. It doesn't suit you." The university president, Dr. Harrison, stepped forward, his face grim. "Lionel Simmons, as of this moment, you are officially suspended from the university, pending expulsion. Your academic records will be flagged with a permanent notation of academic dishonesty and database tampering. You will not receive your degree, and the university will fully cooperate with the police investigation." "No, please, Dr. Harrison. My parents. They sacrificed everything for me to go here." Lionel begged, dragging himself forward on his knees. "I'm the first one in my family to graduate college. If I get expelled now, my life is over." "Your life is over because of your own greed and arrogance," Dr. Harrison said coldly. "And as for Vivian Crosby, you are also suspended indefinitely. Your credentials will be thoroughly audited, and your admission to this university will be re-evaluated for fraud." The classmates who had previously championed Vivian and mocked me were now trying to shrink into the shadows, terrified that they would be dragged into the mud along with them. Mr. Wood, Mark whispered, his voice trembling. What about us? We didn't know. Lionel changed the grades. We were just following what he said. Please, don't delay our graduation. Our families are waiting. Charles looked at the group of students with absolute disdain. You all stood by and watched a classmate get bullied, defamed, and assaulted, and your only concern was whether you could get a free meal out of it. You even encouraged her to drink to appease a fraud. He looked at Dean Vance. The entire business administration graduation ceremony is postponed for 24 hours. Every single student in this class will undergo a thorough background check and behavioral review before their degree certificates are released. Anyone found to have aided or abetted Lionel's fraud or participated in the harassment of my niece will have their graduation delayed indefinitely. A wave of groans and cries of despair erupted from the classmates. Some began to weep openly, while others glared at Lionel and Vivian with pure hatred. This is all your fault, one girl screamed at Vivian. You fake, manipulative bitch. You ruined our lives. And you, Lionel. You pathetic excuse for a president. Mark roared, stepping forward as if he wanted to hit Lionel himself. You dragged us all down with you. Enough, Charles said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Marcus, call the police to have Mr. Simmons and Miss Crosby escorted to the station for questioning. Wait. Vivian screamed, her makeup completely smeared, looking like a ghost. What about the job at Apex Enterprises? They hired me. They said I could start this afternoon. Amelia, please, you can have the job back. I'll tell them it was all a mistake. I looked at her, a faint, cold smile playing on my lips. Vivian, did you really think Apex Enterprises hired you because of your charm? I took out my phone and dialed a number, putting it on speaker. Hello, Miss Wood, a respectful voice answered from the other end. It was the exact same voice that had called Vivian earlier to offer her the job, the hiring manager of Apex Enterprises. Mr. Davis, I said calmly. I believe you called a student named Vivian Crosby earlier to offer her a position using my credentials. Yes, Miss Wood, Mr. Davis replied immediately, his voice dripping with anxiety. I must apologize profusely. When we received that anonymous tip this morning claiming your resume was fake, I panicked and acted hastily without verifying the facts. It wasn't until Chairman Charles Wood's office contacted our CEO directly 10 minutes ago that we realized what had happened. We have already terminated the offer to Miss Crosby. Her file has been blacklisted across all our subsidiaries. Thank you, Mr. Davis. I appreciate the swift resolution, I said, and hung up. Vivian stared at the phone as if it had turned into a venomous snake. Her last saving grace, her ticket into high society, had vanished in an instant. Within 10 minutes, the local police arrived at the restaurant. Lionel and Vivian were led out in handcuffs, their heads bowed as they passed by the patrons of the restaurant, who whispered and pointed at them. The classmates followed behind, their faces pale and full of dread, knowing they had to go to the administrative building to face the academic board's investigation. Before Lionel was pushed into the police cruiser, he turned back to look at me. One last time. His eyes were red, filled with tears of regret and anger. Amelia. We were together for 3 years, he choked out. How could you be so heartless? How could you destroy me like this over a single mistake? I walked up to the edge of the police car, looking down at him with no emotion. In my eyes. A single mistake, Lionel. You systematically dismantled my hard work to elevate a girl who played the victim. You stole my resume, ruined my reputation, let your friends bully me, and physical assaulted me. If I had been an ordinary girl without a wealthy family, my entire future would have been ruined today, and you wouldn't have felt a single ounce of regret. I leaned in closer, my voice whispering like a cold wind. You didn't make a mistake, Lionel. You just got caught. The officer shut the door, and the police car drove away, its sirens wailing into the distance. The restaurant manager stood nearby, holding the unpaid bill of $8,450. He looked at me, then at Charles, his expression nervous. Mr. Wood, about the bill. Charles waved his hand dismissively. His secretary immediately stepped forward and handed the manager a black titanium card. Put it on this. And prepare a private room for us. My niece needs to rest. Right away, sir. Right away, the manager said, bowing repeatedly before scurrying off. In the quiet of the private VIP room, my uncle looked at me with concern. Amelia, your face. We should go to the hospital to get it checked and documented for the police report. It's just a minor scratch, Uncle Charles, I said, touching my cheek. But yes. Let's document it. I want to make sure Lionel gets the maximum sentence possible. For assault. Charles smiled, a proud gleam in his eyes. That's my girl. Your father would have been proud of how you handled yourself today. You didn't let them step on you. I promised Mom I would start from the bottom, but I never promised I would let myself be bullied by hypocrites, I replied, my eyes flashing with a cold determination. Now, what about Apex Enterprises? The CEO of Apex is already waiting at our family headquarters, Charles said, checking his watch. He wants to personally apologize to you and discuss your transition into the executive training program. You won't be starting as an ordinary intern anymore, Amelia. You'll be stepping in as the director of project development. Good, I said, standing up and smoothing down my dress. Let's go. I have a company to run. 2 hours later, at the local police station, the atmosphere was grim. Lionel and Vivian were kept in separate interrogation rooms. Because the academic database Lionel had hacked was part of a state-funded university system, the charges were elevated to a federal level of unauthorized access to a protected computer network, alongside identity theft and fraud. Vivian's parents arrived at the station shortly after. Far from the wealthy aristocrats Lionel had imagined, they were simple, hard-working people. When her father, Mr. Crosby, heard what his daughter had done, he was so shocked and angry that his face turned purple. He slapped his hand against the interrogation table, the sound echoing through the room. Vivian. How could you do something so shameful? Mr. Crosby roared, tears streaming down his weathered face. We worked extra shifts, saved every penny, and even took out a second mortgage to pay for your tuition. We wanted you to have a good life. And you stole another girl's grades? You tried to steal her job. Dad, please. Vivian sobbed, her hands shaking in her cuffs. I did it for us. Lionel said Amelia was rich and didn't need the job. He said she would never find out. I wanted to get a high-paying job at Apex so I could pay off your mortgage. Quiet, her mother wept, burying her face in her hands. We don't want stolen money. You've ruined your life, Vivian. You won't even get a degree now. What company will ever hire someone with a criminal record for fraud? Meanwhile, in the other room, Lionel's parents were also in a state of collapse. His mother was begging the police officers, while his father sat silently in a corner, staring at the floor in shame. Lionel looked at his parents, his voice hoarse from crying. Dad, Mom, call Amelia. Please. Tell her to drop the charges. She loved me. We were going to get married. If she just tells the police it was a misunderstanding, they'll let me go. His father slowly stood up, walked over to Lionel, and looked at him with profound disappointment. Lionel, we called her. Her family's lawyer answered the phone. He said if we contact Amelia or her family again, they will add a charge of harassment and witness tampering. Lionel's heart sank into an icy abyss. No, she can't do this to me. She can, and she is, his father said, his voice hollow. The lawyer also said, the apartment you've been renting in the city, the one Amelia paid the security deposit and 6 months of rent for? The lease has been terminated. They are evicting us today. And the car she bought you? The registration is under her family's company name. They've already towed it away. Lionel stared blankly at his father. Every luxury he had enjoyed over the past 3 years, the expensive apartment, the sports car, the designer clothes, the social status as the successful class president, had been provided by the very girl he had discarded and humiliated. He had traded a diamond for a piece of glass, and now he was left with absolutely nothing. The next morning, the campus of the university was buzzing with gossip. The graduation ceremony, which had been abruptly postponed, was rescheduled for the afternoon. But the atmosphere was far from celebratory. In the main conference hall of the administration building, a special disciplinary hearing was taking place. The members of the board of trustees, including Charles Wood, sat at a long mahogany table. Dean Vance and Dr. Harrison stood before them, looking like reprimanded schoolboys. I sat next to my uncle, dressed in a sharp, tailored navy pantsuit, my hair pulled back in a sleek, professional ponytail. The faint red mark on my cheek had been covered with makeup, but the police photos had already been entered into the record. Dean Vance, Charles said, his voice echoing in the large room. We have reviewed the academic logs. It appears Lionel Simmons did not act alone. He had help from a junior administrator in the IT department who accepted a bribe of $5,000 to share the database access credentials. Dean Vance's face turned white. We have already terminated the employee in question, Mr. Wood. He has been handed over to the police. And what about your lack of oversight? Charles continued, his eyes narrowing. When my niece reported that her grades had been tampered with, you did not investigate. Instead, you allowed Lionel Simmons to dictate the narrative and proceed with printing a fraudulent graduation list. I was misled, Mr. Wood. Dean Vance stammered, sweating profusely. Lionel was the class president, a student with an exemplary record. I had no reason to doubt his integrity. Your job is to verify, not to trust blindly, I spoke up, my voice calm but commanding. As the dean of the School of Business, your failure to protect the academic integrity of your students is a direct reflection of your incompetence. If this story leaks to the press, that the prestigious School of Business allowed grade tampering and identity theft under its nose, the university's reputation will be ruined. Dr. Harrison, the university president, quickly nodded in agreement. Miss Wood is absolutely correct. Dean Vance, your negligence has caused severe damage to the university. The board has decided to suspend you from your administrative duties indefinitely, pending a full internal audit of all grades issued under your tenure. Dean Vance slumped into a chair, his face completely devoid of life. He had spent 20 years climbing the academic ladder, only to be ruined by his complicity in Lionel's scheme. As for the other students, Dr. Harrison turned to me, his tone respectful. We have completed the background checks on the classmates who were present at the dinner. While they did not participate in the database hack, their behavior toward you was a clear violation of the university's student conduct policy regarding harassment and bullying. We have issued official academic warnings to all 22 students. Their graduation certificates will be withheld for 6 months, and they must complete 50 hours of community service before they can receive their degrees. I nodded slowly. That is a fair resolution, Dr. Harrison. I knew this punishment was a heavy blow for my former classmates. A 6-month delay on their degrees meant their pending job offers would be rescinded, and they would have to explain to their families and future employers why they couldn't graduate on time. It was a fitting consequence for their hypocrisy and cruelty. 3 months later, the high-rise headquarters of the Wood Group stood proudly in the center of the city's financial district. On the top floor, in a spacious office overlooking the city skyline, I sat behind a sleek glass desk, reviewing the quarterly financial reports of our new green energy initiative. A soft knock came at the door, and my secretary, Sarah, entered. Director Wood, Sarah said respectfully. The legal department has sent over an update regarding the Lionel Simmons and Vivian Crosby case. Go ahead, I said, putting down my tablet. Lionel Simmons has been sentenced to 2 years in a minimum security correctional facility for computer fraud and identity theft. His academic record has been permanently wiped, and he is legally barred from applying to any public university in the state. His family has also filed for bankruptcy to cover the legal fees and the outstanding debts he accumulated. I nodded, feeling no satisfaction, only a quiet sense of closure. He had chosen his path, and now he had to walk it. And Vivian Crosby? I asked. She received a suspended sentence of 1 year, with 200 hours of community service and a permanent record of academic fraud. She attempted to find work in the city, but because her name is blacklisted in the national corporate database, no reputable company will hire her. The latest report says she has returned to her hometown to work at her mother's flower shop. I see, I said. Thank you, Sarah. You can leave. As Sarah left the office, I turned my chair to look out at the sprawling city. Below, the sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the glass skyscrapers. 3 months ago, I was a student facing betrayal, humiliation, and a ruined future. Today, I was the executive director of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, leading a team of hundreds of talented professionals. The phone on my desk rang. I picked it up. Amelia, my Uncle Charles's voice came through, warm and proud. Are you ready for the board meeting in 10 minutes? We are presenting the new acquisition plan to the shareholders. I'm ready, Uncle Charles, I said, a confident smile playing on my lips. I'll be right down. I stood up, adjusting my blazer. The past was behind me, and the future was entirely mine to command. I walked out of the office, ready to take my rightful place at the top.